Hiya! Welcome to this, my 102nd episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Aman, sifting my basket of media memories, and in this installment, titled The Good Guys, Bradley Whitford, Colin Hanks, I have been waiting for this one to turn up. Also, new season of Doctor Who, I close a long-standing gap in my collection, plus disc sets, local productions, and I get into the weeds on some corrections. It's all connected. Welcome to the show.
He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.
This past week was exciting because we were finally able to make a bit of progress in our housing situation. Our moves have been limited while we've been paying mortgage in Bismarck, and with everything signed and our house finally sold, we can finally focus on finding housing locally. Knowing what my address is going to be helps us know what kind of commute to aim for. Some of the properties we've looked at are more than an hour away from where we've been staying. I guess I got used to being able to walk to work in Mandan. Finding a job with health benefits would be amazing, but I'm just happy we've managed to shove one major obstacle out of our path, and we can look for work and housing here in earnest. I'm excited about the fuzzy feature this week, but this correction's on topic and has been a long time in coming, so I'm gonna start with correction. Error. Last time I talked about tracking down and viewing the pilot episode of Continuum, based in part from encountering an actor in that series in Fringe, also for conversation I had with my sister in episode 100 regarding Rachel Nichols and the short-lived Fox drama Point Pleasant.
And you brought up a couple of shows there that, back in those Fox days of, they'd have a season of a great show and it would develop this huge following, and then they'd be like, nah, it didn't make like $100 billion, so we're just going to cancel it. Firefly is a really good example of that, but Wonder Falls and Point Pleasant, I'd actually forgotten about that show, and I loved that show, but I loved Wonder Falls. That was a great show. For probably 2 or 3 years after that, I'm like, I'm going to live in an Airstream trailer. It's going to be amazing. Those are great shows.
Yeah, that was the thing. And I was like following Rachel Nichols on when she went to the Inside, and when she every time I saw her anywhere, I tried to follow the show because it was she was such a compelling, goddamn storyteller. She was an amazing actress. Let's start here. Rachel Nichols, just massive memory glitch. Apparently I'm remembering Rachel Nichols from The Inside and Alias. The ethereal lead in Point Pleasant, Christina Nixon, was played by Elisabeth Harnois, not Rachel Nichols. Which I was remembering Point Pleasant as a Tim Minear production, but while he was executive producer for Angel, Firefly, Wonder Falls, The Inside, and Dollhouse, was somehow not involved in Point Pleasant, or Miracles for that matter, even though there was thematic crossover material between Miracles and the 4th season of Angel. I thought it might be Richard Hayden, who was executive producer for Miracles, True Calling, Supernatural, The Inside, and The Lost Room, but not Angel. So, here it is. I was putting this segment together. I pulled up a post in FireflyFans.net chat room from 2006. The internet is truly forever. It highlighted David Greenwald's executive producer involvement in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, and, wait for it, Miracles. As for Point Pleasant, that had a Buffy tie through show creator Marty Noxon. So yeah, while there's solid Jossverse connections for Rachel Nichols through Adam Baldwin in The Inside and Amy Acker in Alias, she was not the otherworldly waif in Point Pleasant. Sorry for any misremembering, and I appreciate this opportunity to correct it. I give Criminal Minds a lot of guff, but according to IMDb, and I guess I'll talk about this here, both Rachel Nichols and Elisabeth Harnois made appearances in that production. Nichols in 13 episodes and Harnois in 1. Other familiar faces making multiple appearances over the years include Jeannie Triplehorn, Harold Perrineau, Felicity Huffman, Nicholas DeGasto, Aubrey Plaza, Aisha Tyler, Nicholas Brendan, Jane Lynch, Beth Riesgrave from Leverage, Paul F. Tompkins, Mark Van, Mark Hamill, James Vanderbeek, Tim Curry, for Christ's sakes, Meshach Taylor, Trisha Helfer, Corey Reynolds, and Ted Dennison from The Closer, Cameron Manheim from The Practice, Garrett Dillahunt. We even had appearances by such golden threads as Bailey Chase, Danny Clifford, and Sharon Lawrence. Most of these actors made, as I said, multiple appearances and represent vast ties through my media collection, and I'll add a few more. DJ Qualls and Nikki Acox with ties through Supernatural, Mitch Pileggi with ties through The X-Files, and Devin Gummersall and tie through My So-Called Life. I had Kate Jackson with connections through Charlie's Angels and Sarah and Mrs. King, and such notables as Luke Perry, Jason Alexander, Sybil Shepherd, Alex O'Loughlin, Dean Norris, Forrest Whitaker, Jonathan Frakes, Corbin Burnson, Renee Aubergenois, Terry Polo, Ray Wise. Okay, look, I get that shows like this run long enough, everyone's had to go, and Connecting Through Criminal Minds is closing in on having appeared on television, but I really hadn't stopped to consider just how many people were involved in this thing beyond the main cast, and I enjoyed taking a few moments to do so. Closing this segment, I noticed that Elisabeth Harnois was also in a 2013 production called Riddle, which I'd never heard of, and it sounds intriguing. Gotta check that out one day as well. Onward!
And now, VideoFuzzy presents Fuzzy Feature.
On to my fuzzy feature, which, yep, I was cataloging through the season finales on a bunch of shows, building up some seriously high drama situations. A few stood out: Brothers and Sisters, Fringe, 24, and I was nearly sold on Grey's Anatomy's towering sixth-season conclusion, which featured Golden Thread Michael O'Neill as a distraught pistol-wielding widower seeking floor-to-floor revenge and terrorizing the hospital. But then, on disc 1849, my fondest hopes were realized. It's Colin Hanks. It's Bradley Whitford with a nice fat river weasel on his upper lip, burning through the mean streets of Dallas, Texas in a Trans Am. And that was just a guess on my part. The Internet Movie Car Database, which I was today years old when I learned that was a thing, says it's a 1979 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am. Woohoo! Yes, at long last, after years of anticipation, after a promo turned up in my cataloging effort last time, I've got Bradley Whitford as Texas lawman Dan Stark and his service mustache climbing out of a steamy single-wide shower to loose himself on an unsuspecting public. The Good Guys is a Matt Nix production, and if that name is not familiar to you, Nix is responsible for Burn Notice on USA Networks, a show ostensibly about a once professional spy trying to get his spy job back, but mostly it's an unlicensed private eye wandering around Miami and getting into scrapes. I'll chat about it sometime. I know I talked about it some in episode 47, Podcasting in Plain Sight, around the 2.5-minute mark, and I shared some third season art direction on VideoFuzzy's Instagram. Oh, you've got to scroll way back for that one. It's like the 7th thing I ever posted on that account, dated from December of 2021. As for The Good Guys, it's Dallas, and Julius Grant has made a terrible mistake. No, not the breaking and entering, that's just his side hustle. Rather, he chose the house with a fatback television set. Not even a flat screen. Never mind pawning it from the shop he works at with a brain trust. How's he gonna lift it? The thing is huge. While he's working out those logistics, the homeowner pulls into the driveway, which made me wonder where Julius parked. Or was he gonna carry a TV through the neighborhood? He wouldn't have made it with a 1994 fatback. That crashed to the floor when he got distracted by the homeowner coming home. So, quick-thinking Julius grabbed a humidifier on his way out the door, suppose with the logic, well, I'm here, I better steal something. Julius we're going to see again, and this was clever writing in the establishment of this buddy cop action comedy, which I should detail now. Colin Hanks as Officer Bailey, young, dedicated, detail-oriented, and lacking in the ways of office politics, managing to insult the chief, his department head, and his boss, Lieutenant Ruiz, which is why he's eternally stuck in routine investigations, babysitting Bradley Whitford as Officer Dan Stark and co-starring Melmac the Lip Ferret. Together they drive around in Bailey's Buick. Today they're investigating some property damage and the theft of a humidifier at some nice lady's home. Eileen's surprised they're even there, and is having trouble concentrating because she's a little starstruck because, oh my god, it's Dan Stark! So, what's going on here is back in 1985, Officer Stark saved the governor's son. In 1985, the governor of Texas was Mark White, and he did in fact have a son, Andrew White, who would have been 13 at the time, but I can't believe this is in any way based on historical fact, because at the time Stark would have been 26, and in 2010 he is, well, Bradley Whitford. It was 25 years ago, but hold on now, there was some to do about it. Eileen would have been 20 or so when the story hit. It is Texas, and he is law enforcement, and don't let's forget about that mustache. Eileen certainly hasn't. She and Officer Stark repair to the privacy of her bedroom so to better enable Mr. Stark to conduct his inquiries, while Bailey thoroughly explores the crime scene. Much later, as they are leaving, Bailey says, "If you remember anything else, please don't hesitate to call. We'll send over another minor celebrity for you to sleep with." Bailey needs a win, and this case is not a winner, but Stark is sure, after his exhaustive interview of Eileen, that there's more to this case. Crime is like a sweater, he said. You pull one thread, it's all connected. Sure, maybe this is just a stolen humidifier, but maybe by the time this is over, we're going to be dealing with a major crime. Bailey's not so sure. Fortunately, he has connections. Well, an connection. He asks Assistant District Attorney Liz Traynor, who he dated for about a minute like a year ago, to prioritize lab work on the stolen humidifier, and voila, he gets it. Entirely unrelated, or so it might seem, a drug runner nicknamed the Chihuahua is unhappy with the low regard in which he is held by Romero, the cartel boss for whom he moves product. Low remuneration, awful cars, frill-free accommodations. He's had enough, and one day he expresses his displeasure during a handoff with a spray of gunfire and the theft of $4 million. The Chihuahua contacts Dr. Kalfus, a plastic surgeon, to rebuild his face in the image of Eric Estrada. Something goes wrong during the procedure, and the plastic surgeon's office explodes. Ay, Chihuahua! Somehow that explosion goes entirely uninvestigated, and no one notices Dr. Kalfus packing 2 bodies into a disposable hatchback, thoroughly visible in the trunk, along with a golf bag. Oh, here we go. He's called in the services of criminal mastermind Julius. Dr. Kalfus asks him to lose the car in Mexico. Julius drives there. It's about 15 hours round trip, drops the car off a ledge 35 miles inside Mexico, and he takes the golf bag to his shop. Romero isn't okay with the Chihuahua shooting his delivery guys and taking their money. He sends an assassin, Pedro, the second best assassin in the world, to recover the $4 million. He goes to the cheap accommodations referenced in the initial complaint and found a brochure that Dr. Kalfus. Going there, he learns of Julius and the pawn shop. Back in the office, Bailey and Stark are excited by the quick response on the lab work, which connects them to Julius at the pawn shop. When they get there, Pedro is already there and has moved to the shoot-'em-up, blow-the-place-up portion of the interrogation. While there, they find the humidifier.
Huzzah!
Bailey and Stark ask Lieutenant Ruiz for backup, but she quite sensibly hands the case off to Homicide. Oh no! But Stark has a plan. He enters the pawn shop with a belly full of expired cottage cheese and Bud Light, saying he was traumatized by the shooting. He can't sleep, he's not feeling right, and throws up all over everything. Naturally, the officers assigned to the case run away, leaving Bailey free to look for clues. He finds a note from Dr. Kalfus crumpled up in the garbage, and they drive to his home, where they find Pedro shooting at them through the door. There's a firefight with the world's second-best assassin, which Bailey, Stark, and Dr. Kalfus somehow survive. Pedro learns that the Chihuahua wanted facial reconstructed to look like Eric Estrada. Hearing he's a plastic surgeon, Stark asks Dr. Kalfus if he'd help his friend Eileen with a breast augmentation, and Dr. Kalfus says, sure, just find the assassin and shoot him. He notes that Pedro used his computer to get the location to the next meetup, which is how Bailey and Stark learn that they're meeting at the strip club. The next day, Pedro meets with Romero, and he's available now. Romero has flown to the U.S. with the best assassin in the world. They are headed to the stripping club to meet Julius and get the golf bag back. Bailey and Stark are strategizing. They're no longer on the blown-up pawn shop case. Well, Bailey sort of is, but right now they're about a mile away from the stripping club at a convenience store with an off license, and Bailey's checking in with Liz. Liz tells him there's no problem prosecuting a case they're not assigned to if everything is in order, but free legal advice, don't take a case you're not assigned to. If you fail, you look stupid. And if you succeed, you make everyone else look stupid, which Bailey's all about that. It's his whole thing. Correcting superiors' grammar in front of their bosses, insulting Ruiz's casework from 8 years ago. He thanks Liz and promptly ignores her advice. For his part, Stark's got to ask, why is still checking in with Liz? To which Bailey says, we need all the friends we can get with all the rules we're breaking. They head to the strip club, but not before Stark notices a 79 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am with a for sale sign and is momentarily distracted, but, oh hell, sure, let's go to the strip club. They apprehend Julius, then outfit him as an informant. It's a Matt Nix production, so it's not going to surprise you to learn that the writing starts getting very complicated here, and if the cameras were not specifically on the scenes that they are, it would feel like we missed something. The next day, Ruiz has taken Stark off the case, but lets Bailey pursue it. Don't really know why. Unless Bailey tells Stark. Again, how's that work? Ruiz also lets Bailey know what happened to Stark's partner, Officer Savage. He had a nervous breakdown when Stark convinced him to jump out of a moving car and apprehend a suspect. Dr. Kalfus, having nothing going on, reaches out to Eileen based on Dan Stark's request. She's in his office the next day, why not? Where, haha, we learn the Chihuahua survived the explosion in Kalfus's office, and what a tiny little world has stolen a car and driven from Mexico to Dr. Kalfus's somehow not still blown up office so as to finish the job of turning him beautiful. Kalfus, what a gentleman, offers Eileen as a hostage and swears he'll continue Chihuahua's plastic surgery. He'll look just like Ponch. On Ponch's way to the stripping club to recover his golf bag with $4 million, and where to get that intel, Stark is at the off sale to score some whiskey after Bailey tells him he's still pursuing the case without him. Okay, so Stark sees Eileen tied up in Ponch's car. Bailey has the unmarked, which, why do routine investigations never mind. Stark yoinks the sports car and pursues Ponch and Eileen. Bailey and Ruiz are at the stripping club where Julius is outfitted with a bulletproof vest as also bartender, why not? The assassins show up with Romero, demanding to know where Romero's money is, and Julius says in the back, but he wants some of it as a finder's fee. Romero shoots him, laughs at the irony of hiring the world's two best assassins and then shooting someone himself. Ponch comes screaming in and grabs the money. Romero runs after him, leaving the assassins in some kind of a standoff with the officers actually assigned to the case. Pedro takes a shot, shoots the world's best assassin, and turns himself into Ruiz because he just wants to go home. Ponch runs Romero over with his car, then he's going to disappear with Eileen and the Bolsa de Golf. Stark comes speeding in with his new sports car, picks up Bailey, who'd come out looking to save Eileen, and then together they pursue Ponch. There's a chase. It's high speed. There's a collision with a fruit truck. Bailey makes a daring leap into Ponch's car and strangles him. Eileen takes Ponch's gun, and Ponch is handcuffed to the steering wheel. Stark comes sauntering up to Eileen and gets a smooch. Later in her office, Liz and Ruiz let them know that the case was not a spectacular success. There were a lot of dead bodies, including witnesses, and $1 million in property damage. However, Stark got some touch from a fan and found a new sports car. Plus, he got a nice letter from Pedro with a picture of him and his kids, saying he appreciated working with such fantastic police officers. Stark tells Bailey that's what being a cop is all about. Not rules. People. You do the job to serve people. Make connections with assassins in distant lands. Arrange plastic surgery for new girlfriends. Bust some bad guys. The Good Guys is ridiculous. It reinforces all of the stereotypes available. When we meet him, Dan Stark is hopping out of the shower. He's sort of Bradley Whitford shape, a creature of appetites. As he moves through his day, he's sort of id forward, touch-groping crime victims and witnesses, on the lookout for cool cars to buy, kinda peaked in high school, very much at rest on 25-year-old laurels. Meanwhile, Bailey is nebbish, fresh from cop school, and ambitious, wanting to be much further ahead than his actual accomplishments would indicate, sabotaging any possible progress at every turn, and so, by his estimation, stuck with the peaked at high school guy. While Matt Nix has peopled his major arcana primarily with stock, immediately recognizable characters, his minor characters sizzle with personality quirks, unexpected motives, they zig when they zag. They're essentially that I Have a Dream sequence from Tangled, where you have a drug dealer, but his goal is to live out the rest of his life as Eric Estrada. The drug kingpin just loves it when the assassin guy does that trick with his revolver. That assassin guy takes a moment to help a guy with his Spanish. Little glimmers of humanity beyond the role that they're presenting, situation they find themselves in. Never mind Tangled, it's kind of reminding me more of Camden from My Name is Earl. Not to mention just how complicated that all was. I mean, I get it. I do. It's a pilot episode, you're creating a universe, you need to establish Stark's ancient heroism, or, goodness, Bailey's sense that he's way better than he actually is. It's relatable. I've been that person. You don't know what you don't know until you learn. Are there better teachers? Well, absolutely, but Bailey is certainly learning. As for what he's learning, well, we had one season to see for ourselves. Plus, the complexity is part of the entertainment factor. Action sequences spliced together with tiny expository fig leaves. It was giving Douglas Adams Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agents. Yeah, mostly because of that crime is like a sweater analogy, but also because it's so crazy even for Matt Nix. I mean, seriously, a half hour in, would anyone have been surprised to encounter a shark driving a car, and then disappearing into the back for 20 minutes to interview a stripper? And because reality as a window on potential corruption in law enforcement, this show puts probably the sunniest possible face on that. Mostly accountability Stark faces for anything he does comes at the hands of other equally flawed individuals, so any inappropriate behavior is filtered through likability, lovability, and frankly the fact that it is Bradley Whitford, and Bradley Whitford is awesome. Colin Hanks is properly shocked at his ridiculous antics. Liz and Lieutenant Ruiz are incensed, yet he always gets away with everything because... what? Oh, Dan. Never change. And in 25 years, he never has.
I associate many things with many things.
Cross connection. You're kidding, right? We're there. Mystical centers of my media collection, Studio 60 on Sunset Strip, 6 Feet Under, Ryan Murphy Productions, and Joss Whedon Productions, or Joss Murphy Studios Under 60 Feet. No. Bradley Whitford was in Studio 60. He was in Joss Whedon's Cabin in the Woods with Amy Acker. I mean, he's as solid a link as they make. Colin Hanks, however, well, let's fire up the emulator and you get... First thing that comes up, he was in the 3rd season of Ryan Murphy's American Crime Story, with Sarah Paulson as Linda Tripp and Edie Falco as Hillary Clinton. And speaking of Edie Falco, he was also in a season of Fargo on FX. 2 core connections to the mystical centers of my media collection, and a fun, tongue firmly in cheek Matt Nix show to boot. Joyous. Earlier, I was recombobulating myself on the whole Rachel Nichols, Elisabeth Harnois, Point Pleasant, the Inside, and Continuum kerfuffle, which itself sparked that whole Criminal Minds rabbit hole I fell into up there. Well, watching the rest of Continuum first season, I saw Tahmon Penniket in the role of present-day 2012 Union leader. He is more usually in my collection Battlestar Galactica BSG and Joss Whedon's Dollhouse. Also in Continuum, William B. Davis appeared as the older Alex Sadler. I've seen him more usually in the X-Files, and here representing connection from that Chris Carter production to Millennium. He also appeared in Kingdom Hospital with Golden Thread Bruce Davison as Dr. Stegman. Oh, and E-Bags himself, Ed Begley Jr. from 6 Feet Under, and Peter McNeil of Numbers. Just to clarify, Chris Carter was executive producer for X-Files and Millennium. I wanted to highlight that for this entry. Other entries, Gary Anthony Williams of Boston Legal appeared in the pilot episode of Profiler alongside Erica Gimpel, who I remember more from Fame and was in a season of Veronica Mars. Ali Walker of Profiler did make an appearance in The Shield, but had a much larger presence in Sons of Anarchy, which probably contributed to the confusion I had on this subject in episode 55, The Art of Failure, and again in episode 64, Unfluential. Golden Thread Michael O'Neill had a sinister recurring role in Grey's Anatomy toward the end of season 6. I'll have more on that in a bit here, along with appearances by Marion Ross of Happy Days and Brothers and Sisters, and Tom Irwin of My So-Called Life and Saving Grace. 3rd season episodes of Chuck turned up featuring Chrisotpher, Lloyd, Scott Bakula, Fred Willard, and Swoosie Kurtz, who, if I've ever shared this before, I will again, should have an Oscar sitting on her mantelpiece for the eloquent opening of a fan in one scene of Dangerous Liaisons. Allison Janney of The West Wing appeared in a couple of 6th-season episodes of Lost that turned up in this set, and as I continue processing material for my far too long neglected sister podcast, VideoFuzzy the Soundtrack, I just tracked down some lost tracks from Marilyn Manson, who, the only reason I bring that up here, along with a chance to remind you that I haven't forgotten about VideoFuzzy the Soundtrack, is in a Jimmy Kimmel special that aired immediately following the Lost series finale. Brian Warner, Marilyn Manson himself, appeared in the audience in recognition for a caricature he'd drawn of Locke. The actor who played him, Terry O'Quinn, also appeared in Millennium. I'm watching that series now. I mentioned up there Mitch Pileggi of The X-Files appeared in a 2nd season episode of Castle that turned up in this set, along with James Patterson, Michael Connelly, Janney and Stephen Cannell appearing as themselves to play poker against Nathan Fillion as Rick Castle. A second season, My Name is Earl, featured John Waters of Hairspray and every John Waters production and Bob Clendinen of Cougar Town. A first season episode of Ryan Murphy's Glee featured Joss Whedon's Dr. Horrible himself, Neil Patrick Harris, along with Molly Shannon from Will and Grace, Bob's Burgers, John Michael Higgins from Mighty Win and Community, and Adele Dazeem herself, Idina Menzel of Frozen, Wicked, Rent, all the things. The dream-themed episode, as in Don't Follow Your Dreams, They All Suck, LOL, featured Dream a Little Dream, which appeared in Murph's American Horror Story series. The song it made me think of that's appeared a lot more often, however, is Tonight You Belong to Me, which, however sweetly it is sung, is just psychotic. I saw Archer's Judy Greer in a third season episode of The Big Bang Theory, and Kelsey Grammer of Frasier reemerged as Sideshow Bob in a 21st season episode of The Simpsons. Oh, speaking of under what I've been watching, I mentioned in episode 100, The Bones and Witness Protection, that Ralph and I have been watching Frasier on Hulu. We just finished season 7, featuring Saul Rubinek from Warehouse 13 as Daphne's intended, but also Rachel York had a walk-on role as a stripper for his bachelor party. And I thought I recognized her, or her name at least, from elsewhere in my collection, but that was not the case. However, I did notice she'd taken the role of Miss Lily Vanessa in the 1990s Great Performances presentation of Kiss Me Kate, which, well, I'll get to that presently, but what a wild coincidence. Back to it, Golden Thread Stephen Weber recurred in third season in Plain Sight, and a first season episode of Justified turned up featuring Brent Sexton of The Killing and Life, Kevin Repo Thomas of Nip Tuck, The Shield, and Cougar Town, and MC Gainey, who appears much more often in my collection as Sheriff Griffin Stumpy Conroy in Happy Town. Closing out this segment, we got a fifth season episode of Bones featured Kate Vernon, Ellen Tighe from Battlestar Galactica reboot, Wade Williams from Prison Break, and Bruno Amato from I Just Encountered in Ryan Murphy's Mid-Century Modern. He's been in lots of things once, including Castle and Community and Golden Thread. This guy, his mustache's threatening aura appears all over my collection. Sometimes possibly as Kevin Repo Thomas. It really is all about mustaches, this entry. But yeah, Bruno Amato, I'd not included him up there, but he's now a fourth Golden Thread appearing in Criminal Minds. He's in Hunter, he's on Point Pleasant, he was in Desperate Housewives, Monk, Veronica Mars, A Side Order of Life, he was in Chuck, I mentioned Castle and Community, he was in Viva Laughlin, Terminator, The Sarah Connor Chronicles, I got him in Raising the Bar, I just saw him in Bones, he was in Two Broke Girls, Sons of Anarchy, Revenge, Happy Endings, Will and Grace, and it's not in my collection just yet, but my husband Ralph and I have been watching Ryan Murphy's Mid-Century Modern. Amato played a floor manager at a casino who offered to cancel Nathan Lane's Buddy Schneiderman's gambling debts for a fling with Matt Bomer's flight attendant character, Jerry. Amato's got a strong presence as a character actor, a good instinct and approach for the roles he's taking on, a lot of intensity, and he's done a great job everywhere I've seen him. Diving into my classic collection. My classic collection of VHS DVD transfers this time covered discs 1826 through 1850, and I've been running into a couple issues I figured I'd mention in case something unavoidable happens. At least 3 of the discs I transferred this time through disc errors when I hopped them into my LG player. LG, as he's called, has given me years of service at this point. For a machine I bought for $40 5 years ago, it's done quite well. And the reason I mention it is because these discs will not play in LG, but each one of them, when I hop them into my tower, my PC could play them in DVD mode. My Power2Go DVD player app let me watch them just fine. So possibly there was an issue with the way they've been saved or the discs themselves, but it's becoming more likely that the problem rests with LG may be wearing out, and I'm certain I can replace them with a similarly down-market DVD player. I almost don't want to. Real talk, I've got more than 3,000 DVDs, and long-term goal is to transfer all that data to a hard drive. I haven't done any test cases. Once that process starts, it will take less time than cataloging. But it's the same as when I stopped recording to VHS. I had a bit of a panic how recording DVD would work, as it happens imperfectly, especially at first, but likely I'll be able to archive data streams as well as a hard drive as I can burn them onto a disk. I've got 2 DVD recorders in storage waiting to join us in Utah as soon as we know where we're going to be. I'm hesitant to buy another DVD player, but I will say this. is a lot easier to catalog using exterior player than display rather than switching back and forth between my DVD app and Word. As problems go, this really isn't one. I guess I'm just thinking out loud, but yeah, if further entries are delayed, this is probably why. Discussing what I did find, I mentioned Michael O'Neill in his late sixth-season story arc in Grey's Anatomy. He played Gary Clark, a widower pressing malpractice and wrongful death suit against Patrick Dempsey as neurosurgeon Dr. Derek McDreamy Shepherd. Gary seems to think that his wife's do not resuscitate living will declaration, that if her function was going to be unacceptably limited, she would prefer not to exist like that. Gary seemed to think that was optional, that it was not okay for the medical staff to even bring that up with him. In his estimation, once Shepherd had his wife on the table, that meant she was going to live, that she would recover. He never prepared himself for any other potential. So later, when he buys a handgun and strolls about through the complex shooting people, that's just justice for the staff at Mercy West murdering his wife. Couple things. This guy, part of his approach was just to shoot medical staff. First, he was just shooting and killing anyone he encountered. There were a few staffers he targeted specifically, attendants involved with her surgery, one who physically pulled the plug on her life support. Some begged for their life and he let them go. Some begged that he shoot them instead. In one situation, Dr. Shepard's on the operating table. Dr. Yang is operating on him, and Gary is aiming his pistol at her, ordering her to stop trying to save his life. It's all very dramatic, but at some point Gary got shot by a sniper responding to the crime scene with, I'll mention it here, glacial progress. They go floor by floor, room by room. Gary's left a trail of blood behind him. His sniper could track him, yet we've got him steadily holding a gun on Christina as Meredith Grey, Shepard's wife, begs Gary to shoot her instead, shoot her and her unborn child. The likelihood that Gary could accomplish this attack 20 minutes after being shot himself, and that he'd escape this operating room unbothered and somehow live to confront Dr. Weber, is utterly ridiculous. Oh, it's some of the best suspense I've ever seen in a network television production. Massively sympathetic his shooting victims are, but oh my god, the writing on this thing. Derek on the operating table, Meredith's unborn baby, Iraqi war vet Owen Hunt trying to manage an active shooter situation with his PTSD, as the woman he loves is trying to operate, and my God, is this protocol to go floor by floor, room by room, while the man stands as exposed as he can make himself for 20 minutes aiming a handgun at Dr. Shepard on the skywalk? He's this great, scary, indestructible spider, free to move all over the hospital and hop, out of absolutely everywhere, and his final lament is he's run out of bullets to kill both himself and Dr. Weber. Normally, this kind of over-the-top emotional writing makes sense in a medical setting where people spend their entire days facing down challenging situations. And what's more, Grey's Anatomy's 6th season finale was happening at the same time as lots of production season finales like Brothers and Sisters and Bones, Lost, 24... Just a bunch. The dramatic, over-the-top writing was at a fever pitch throughout this whole set. So it made sense. I understood why it was all happening the way it was, and I understood why it was all written the way it was, but oh man, the situation had to unfold in exactly that way to give us this outcome, and it feels in this case like I had to participate quite a lot in the suspension of disbelief. Oh, speaking of, I have spoken at length about the problems presented by the Weeping Angels in Doctor Who. In the 5th season, they made a solid whack at providing a backstory for these creatures, introduced in Blink, the universe's most efficient assassins. They move with ferocious speed unless they're observed, at which point they turn into indestructible stone. Even while they were writing this, the pitfall should have been obvious. Cameras everywhere. More than one person observing them. What's the baseline for observation? Just people? Birds flying by? Dogs? Bats? Insects? Can being seen by a mosquito keep you stony? How about a spy satellite? Well, Angel suggests theology, and Doc, River, and Amy encounter a battalion of prelates as part of the papal mainframe. This dropped the Weeping Angels into a larger story centered around a crack in space-time and a pair of significant kidnappings involving a mysterious woman with an eye patch and an alien race you can never remember seeing. And it didn't improve it at all. In 5th season installment, The Time of the Angels, it was suggested that even if you could just stare at an angel long enough, you would become one. By what holds an image of an angel becomes an angel, or some such bosh. Or, in The Angels Take Manhattan, the friggin' Statue of Liberty is one. And I'm like, well, first she's hollow and made of copper, but no, really, first, how is no one seeing the Statue of Liberty strolling the streets of Manhattan and time-killing Amy Pond? Jody sees them climbing from stone corridors during the flux cycle, and there's some suggestion they arose from a curse laid upon a renegade faction of the Sisterhood of Karn in the End of Time, 3 years after they were introduced, and immediately forgotten. Yeah, the mythos never gelled, and these 5th season installments, The Time of the Angels and Flesh and Stone, while they laid in the general structure required of the conflict in The Impossible Astronaut, A Good Man Goes to War, and Let's Kill Hitler, I'm thinking that a race of quantum-locked assassins who float along agelessly and feed on the energy of people they quite randomly send back in time is potentially a lot more disruptive to a race of regenerating time travelers than, seriously, 12 had the chance to kill Davros as a child and avert the entire time war. Planets full of people would have been saved. It wouldn't even have been his fault. These angel things, however, can cause mass temporal and existential crises, and we don't even know what they want or how to stop them. In the end, they don't even follow their own rules. Bah! Doctor Who invites this kind of exploration because people have been fans of the show for 60-plus years. When Chris Chibnall was an aide showrunner, I was so excited because his bona fides included an expansive knowledge of old and new Who and a long-time personal fandom. So, when he built us up to the timeless child, one Gallifreyan and one Ood destroying all existence in the flux, it was... I get it. There's a reality to acknowledge where Tom Baker was the 12th incarnation. There's been a couple of elsewise regenerations, like the Watcher attending Baker's regeneration into a 5th Doctor, Peter Davison. Number 6, Colin Baker encountered the distillation of his darkness from some future regeneration, Trial of a Time Lord. River Song, human conceived in the vortex, gifted her remaining regenerations to Eleben to save him after poisoning him. And I'm still getting up to speed on some classic Who, but that's just what I remember offhand. The Master has had just about the strangest set of regenerations, turning into snake energy, turning into an energy wraith, turning entirely mecha, just taking over some other character's body as part of renewing his regenerative powers, being named Prime Minister, momentarily serving as the genetic template for all humanity, and goodness, all of Gallifrey hiding in a pocket universe till it's safe. Then, Well, I will say bringing Timothy Dalton in to play Lord Rassilon was a stroke of genius, though I always saw Rassilon in one of those 19th century style observatories being continually amazed at his own amazingness. But yeah, when a show has been running 60 years, then sometime in the 6th decade you introduce rogue doctors, memory blocks, millennia in scope, characters the doc can't know without her head exploding. I guess if it were me, and it's not, but if it were me, I'd take a year to just watch every episode since An Unearthly Child, listen to every episode of Dr. Lore from Big Finish, interview every living writer, every living actor, read all scripts, notes, and memoirs. I would become that library planet for Doctor Who over the course of an entire year, and all that time weighing what was canon, what seemed forced, and here's what I wanted Jody to do. It's what I want Ncuti to do, or I want Joe Martin to step back into frame, and here's what I'd like to see happen. I'd like a season full of storytelling that just explores past adventures, fixes errors. I mean, you've got a time machine, you've got decades worth of lore, and for the vast majority of current viewers, all of this would be new storytelling. And you've even got a device, the Pocket Watch Swarm handed off to 13, whispering the memories of her entire existence, dropped into the Eye of Harmony for safekeeping. They can open that at any point. I don't know about you, but I always enjoyed watching stories of past Slayers, even if I didn't know their backstory. Knowing what we were watching was the Doctor in every incarnation, dealing with all the wild, timey-wimey weirdness that ever they had, like Sheryl Crow's A Change Would Do You Good video, where different characters solved everyone else's problems in their own way, would be a lot of fun. I got onto this topic with the Weeping Angels, and I'd re-established contact with the Time Lords who were part of the founding conflict and fought the Ravagers to get insights for dealing with this rogue branch of the Sisterhood. It's time travel. Barring emergencies, you have time to examine what went right, what went wrong. Maybe make it so things never happened. End the series with a Bill Hartnell version of the Doctor heading forth on adventures in a utopic universe. Or facing entirely new challenges, or come to the conclusion that pain is part of existing and we're responsible for how we're going to deal with it. If we're not able to eliminate pain and suffering in this world, can we be involved in trying to eliminate or at least alleviate it? Framing things in ways we can recognize our responsibility to others, turning not my problem into how can I help, that sort of thing. I think there's good potential for Doctor Who to be, well, all that, but it's the writers for the good place. I really think this could go in some fantastic directions. Speaking of fantastic, I found the second season finale of Fringe in this set, and the in-universe exploration of Over There, a weird burst of destabilizing energy brings a body from our dimension into the other on a stage of an opera house. Following him to the other side, we encounter the Walter Bishop, who's Secretary of Science or something, and the Fringe division is an official operation, with Olivia, Charles, Astrid, and Broyles all working under him. Our team of lovable Fringe goofs are over there with Leonard Nimoy as William Bell. There's a standoff between the Olivias, and we learn that the Olivia on our side at the end of season 2 is not our Olivia. Our Olivia is locked in a dungeon by the other Walter. Ooh, ominous. I'll close this segment as I began it, discussing a 6th-season episode of Grey's Anatomy. I remember this one hit pretty hard on the first run. Jerry Kernion appeared as Bobby Corso, a nearly 700-pound man brought in by emergency crews driving a flatbed truck. When they examined him, they discovered abscess and deep tissue infections, and when he tried to walk on his own, for the first time in more than a year, we're told, his ankles broke under his weight. Dr. Bailey gives her surgeon a very slam course on respecting patient dignity, and the patient arrives, and the hospital is not especially well equipped to deal with a patient of his size. I was honestly with Derek on this one. Seattle Grace or Mercy West or whatever it was at that point is not equipped to deal with a bariatric patient of that size. In 5 years at our regional acute care facility, I never once saw a patient of that size, and we routinely cared for bariatric patients. As a materials guy, I was impressed that they had the right beds on the set, made to accommodate patients of up to 1,000 pounds, with trapeze installations for the patient to raise themselves up. And most of the MRI and CAT scan equipment would not accommodate a patient that size. When Derek said he should have been sent to a different facility that specialized in bariatric care, it was not insensitive. But yeah, the staff kind of talking about him behind his back, and his wife's full-throated defense of him was heartening. Leslie Ward as Melissa Corso said he had been laid off about 7 years before, and he'd been actively looking for work for a few years, but then depression started eating him alive, and food made him happy, so she brought him food. The reason it had come up was she was pregnant with his child. The young magazine model staff were all sniggering with each other as how could that possibly be. She confronted them on that, too. Yeah, there's logistics involved in making love to a 700-pound man, but you know how that's none of your business? Because it's none of your business. In the end, what was frustrating was that Bobby was trying to laugh off the serious health concerns he was facing and how challenging the surgery was going to be. Maybe he should just forget it and go home. And Dr. Karev called him on the joking around. You know the one about the 700-pound man who goes home? He dies, and his wife has a 700-pound mess to clean up. So yeah, surgery's going to be rough, but if you don't at least try, she's got to deal with the fact that you didn't even try. For her, for your unborn child, going home is giving up. He ultimately opted for the surgery, and it was a success. Good work, everyone. I ran into Simpson episodes that put Springfield in a state that corners up with 4 other states, so Sideshow Bob can kill Bart across state lines, and it's in no one's jurisdiction. One of those states is supposed to be North Dakota. I got Barkeep Mo Sislak saying that he moved to Springfield because the zip code spells boobs on a calculator, and that is a decidedly North Dakotan zip code. But the closest meetup of corners with other states is a tri-state corner with South Dakota and Minnesota, so the mystery continues. There's a few other highlights. I found the cold open to Chuck that referenced the opening sequence to Heart. That was the one where Fred Willard and Swoosie Kurtz showed up as mentors. Morgan did the voiceover as Max from that Robert Wagner Stephanie Powers series. I found the series finale of Flash Forward in here. I said I'd talk about that yet, but same with Lost. I want to be able to spend some time research with those first. I saw another episode of Happy Town. The second season of Ashes to Ashes turned up, and I had a couple episodes of that. Third season Breaking Bad I found in this set. Jesse Pinkman talks about an encounter he had with his woodshop instructor. He half-assed a woodshop project making a wooden box. Instructor asked if that was the best he could do. He took another run at it, took some pride in it, and did a better job. Well, They make a callback to that conversation in a season 5 episode. I'd completely forgotten about that. And, the one where they reveal why the elevator doesn't work in the Big Bang Theory but I'll close here. We can revisit all that as I'm able to, or as I feel like it. For now, let's turn to calling up a little old business. There's a clip I've been searching for nearly 2 decades now. I'd all but given up on it, except a few recent developments. See, on disc 225, cataloged here before I even started this project, a recording from 2005, then about, cut into a bit already in progress with Martin Short singing and dancing to calypso drums and backup singers and the Late Night with David Letterman Orchestra about how different actors and high-profile folks refused to do The Late Show. It was hilarious, and I was so happy to have what scrap of it I did, and, of course, if I had ever in any way been able to find the first 20 seconds or so of the bit, I wanted to. Cut to my 100th episode, I included a clip from episode 56, Embrace the Deception, saying I was having trouble finding a shareable link for a sketch on The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson, where he impersonated Michael Caine in space. Outtakes. Well, between posting that episode in October of 2019 and putting that clip show together last month, I tracked down a shareable link to that sketch, which I shared in those show notes for episode 100. The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson is a worldwide pants production, and I thought it was possible that my partial Martin Short clip from the David Letterman show might also be available somewhere if I looked hard enough. Well, it was and it was not. As I've noted in the past, there's a vast amount of material available online. I figured if I entered the right search criteria, if I could just figure out the right formula, I would have the whole comic clip. It was nowhere to be found. Amazon, IMDb, Paramount Plus, well, I'd have needed to renew my subscription, so offhand I couldn't say definitively. I scoured Google and YouTube, and the closest thing that would turn up was a set of best Martin Short appearances on David Letterman, a little curated collection hosted by David Letterman and Paul Schaefer. Well, Letterman ran for decades, first on NBC and then CBS, and Martin Short has made, by one conservative estimate, 117,000 appearances on The Late Show. So, when I saw that runtime of 24 minutes, I remained skeptical. And I did. I watched him be fabulously funny in hundreds of different contexts, losing hope with each passing bit, till like 20 minutes in, I saw him appear between pictures of James Gandolfini and Vice President Dick Cheney, which, oh hey, I know this bit. I clicked play. They start immediately, no preamble, no nothing, with Martin Short singing Won't Do the Late Show to the tune of Copacabana by Barry Manilow. It's wild fun. It is fantastic. It cuts out again. Well, Jeebus in a junk drawer. How am I ever gonna find... okay, No, this is something I know how to do. I record the portion of the clip that is available on YouTube and then pull up my archived recording, which does run all the way through the commercial break. Martin comes back out as Paul Schaefer in the Late Show Orchestra segue into an SCTV Jackie Rogers Jr. dance theme, and Dave grousing how they'd run out of time for a bit that he'd totally been planning instead. I played with picture stability, sound quality equalization, and voila, I got the whole thing in one piece. Not perfectly, but in a way that would remind one of the way it all looked and sounded when it was broadcast originally. I'm not updating my current collection at the moment while our lives are still in transition and my dubber is still mothballed somewhere, but I figured the clip will likely be one of the first entries I include on disc X544 when that exists. And naturally, all of this credits Worldwide Pants. I'm sad not to be able to share the whole thing, but I can absolutely share what portion of it I was able to find available online. And that link is in my show notes.
What I've been watching.
First, I want to celebrate the final production in Vernal Theater's 9th season, Cole Porter's musical Kiss Me Kate, which closed April 19th. It's a truly outstanding performance and tour de force. I'm pretty sure I saw the 1953 movie at some point on TCM. It hasn't turned up in my catalog yet, but I've definitely got an image of Anne Francis climbing around on furniture in Cole Porter's apartment singing Too Darn Hot. My most recent encounter with this trope was Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis. It's Matty Hayes and David Addison in a 3rd season episode of Moonlighting, where the cast did an in-character parody of Shakespeare's comedy Taming of the Shrew. Mostly I've got Bruce Willis riding a horse into a church singing Louie, Louie, and the closing scene taped the camera.
We hate iambic pentameter!
No one's really able to do much about the misogyny, sexism, and non-consensual activity in the original, and the musical version makes it, about 1,000 times worse. What's going on is apparently no rehearsals. None of these people have any interaction at all before this opening night, tonight. So no one knows that Andrew Bentley as Fred Graham, playing Petruchio, has been pursuing a little fling with Corinne Peacock as Lois Lane, playing Bianca. Certainly not Devin Reynolds as Bill Calhoun, playing Sentio, who's in a more or less committed relationship with her, or as near a one as one can manage, given all of the verses in Act 2's True to You. What's the harm? After all, it's the 1-year anniversary of Fred's divorce from Crystal Thomas as Miss Lily Vanessa, playing Kate, who anyway is engaged to a general and a vice presidential prospect on his way from Washington, Alan Peacock as General Harrison Howell. But somehow, when Lily discovers Fred has sent Lois flowers, she flies into a rage. The other part of this is Bill has somehow racked up $10,000 in gambling debt and signed an IOU with Fred's name. 2 gangsters arrived at the theater to strong-arm payment. Well, Bill doesn't have $10,000 and won't till the run is over, and he won't even have that if Lily runs out on the production. She's threatening to leave during the intermission, so Fred convinces the gangsters to pressure Lily to stay through the run. Meanwhile, she's so mad she's called her general, and he's moved the wedding day up to the following day. He's got her on a strict schedule, no late suppers, no French couture, nothing unseemly for the wife of a conservative vice presidential prospect. Women need a firm hand, after all. Well, she's mad enough at Fred to run out the door, gangsters or no, who, meanwhile, there's been some reorganization in their operation and the $10,000 IOU is no longer payable, so they tear it up. Whew! And as the show builds to its final scene, I guess someone's backstage struggling into Kate's costume to understudy her role, but Lily herself comes back out in all her finery and delivers the closing performance, truly bringing the house down. Whereas the scene where Petruchio meets Kate, and the one where he takes her to his home, has always been iffy. The scene Fred and Lily play is fueled by her rage discovering Fred's dalliance with Lois, as Fred is fighting back with something a little more robust than stage fighting. It all reads terribly abusive, and the stakes are... Well, okay, I stepped outside this and envisioned her conversation with the director or the producer for this thing. I quit! Wow, what's going on? Fred is dating Lois! To which the director would stare at her for a beat, then inform her that so is everyone. Get that costume on and get back on stage. It was a strong performance throughout, and I enjoyed how involved the chorus was in the storytelling. The director and me, if I were doing it, there would be a lot more activity during the opening number, but I did enjoy the side story with Fred's dresser and Lily's dresser. I wouldn't have hated seeing more of Lois and Bill establishing their relationship outside their solo numbers, but there was this one ensemble scene where they were dancing with baskets. I leaned over to Ralph and remarked, "This is why our order is always late at the Olive Garden. Everyone is in the back of the house dancing." But strong solos, strong storytelling. Well, generally, I understood the energy in Too Darn Hot, but it made for a tough opener or second act. But I Hate Men was, as always, fantastic. I don't know how to make it clear there are 2 more verses beyond how she did it, but it worked, as did Fred's Where is the Life That Late I Led. It's always fun. What do you do 1:45 with only a shrew to kiss? And So in Love is just a phenomenal song. It's just so heartfelt. Here's hoping all kinds of very important conversations happen after the curtain falls and these crazy kids can all find some happiness with each other, or at least on stage. Well done, everyone, and all the best to season 10. The lineup looks like Fiddler on the Roof, Clue the Musical, and Annie, 3 solid musicals starting in September. Looking forward to it. I was able to stream the second season premiere of Doctor Who, the second with number 15, Ncuti Gatwa, and the first with Barada Sather's Miss Belinda Chandra. I mean Belinda. If I had to guess, this was another one of these where pulling her out of time created its own pocket universe, because 17 years ago, a young woman, Belinda, was being pursued romantically by a young man, Johnny Green as Al and Bud. Al went to a star registry and named a star, pointed up at the sky and said, "That one," and gave Belinda a certificate of registration. which she kept framed and tacked to her wall. And then the robot showed up. Big, shiny, obviously generated things landing on our planet outside her home in a giant orange checkered rocket, because no one's gonna notice that. And they name her their queen and vaporize her cat and demand she accompany them, which reminded me of Marvin the Martian demanding Bugs Bunny come to Mars with him.
Yes, isn't it delightful?
And suppose I decline to accompany you on your delightful journey, shorty?
Well, that star is light years away, and as she's being abducted, she demands they leave her, take Alan instead. He's the one who registered her as a star. So damn near anything I say from here on out is a spoiler, and this thing premiered April 12th, so I'm not keen on doing that. Mrs. Flood was near Belinda's home when she, now a nurse, is being abducted by great red shiny robots into their creamsicle rocket the size of a sizable hotel. The doctor is involved. He actually showed up at Belinda's hospital looking for her, and then realized because of... Well, I can at least tell you on the way to the star where Nurse Belinda has been named Queen, there was a time glitch, which they kind of indicated, so it's not a terrible spoiler, and there'd have to be, or the trip would have taken so long. What happens after that revelation is terrifically spoilery, but I will say the tiny buffer robots were adorable, and apart from the political turmoil she's dropped into, Nurse Belinda's planet seems nice. Anyone who's watched the show for any amount of time will be reminded of the girl in the fireplace storyline, and that's barely a spoiler. Oh, okay, I haven't stopped talking about this right now, except to say that this adventure got us off to a great start, and I'm looking forward to seeing what will happen in this pocket universe, if that's even what this is. It can't be spoilers if it's a guess. Season 2 of Doctor Who is streaming on Disney+. Now, turning to my physical media, on Continuum, post that very exciting pilot episode I explored last time. The logic fell apart a little. There were 8 criminals, the Liberate gang of terrorists, due for execution in Vancouver for crimes against corporations in 2077, which, it was a different world, clearly. 6 of them arrived at the same time in the same place, inside an army surplus shop of some sort in 2012. One executionee, Lucas, who also appeared in 2012, in an alleyway along with future cop Kira Cameron, played by Rachel Nichols, complete with cybersuit. The 6 created a firestorm of chaos in a targeted attempt to release Lucas from police custody, which sequence of events further eroded Kira's absolutely nothing of a cover. When she first arrived in present-day Vancouver, Kira gave her identity as that of a cop she saw giving a statement on television, Linda Williams, from Portland, in town to track violent gang activity. A colleague from Portland confirms she is not Linda Williams, and they're bristling with suspicion. She is, however, already in touch with Alex Sadler, the future tech giant, now in 2012 a teenager in a barn somewhere developing the prototype for her comm array, and is astonished to learn that it works. She has him cobble together a barely convincing cover story for her partner Carlos Vinegra to track, while Alex stitches together a heavily redacted Section 6 backstory for her suspicious co-workers and police chief. Now Linda's 2012 credentials about as secure as those of Mike Ross in Suits. She's fully installed in the Vancouver precinct, focusing on these half-dozen ne'er-do-well fugitives from the future. Life's cheap for that type. I mean, they have committed a lot of crimes to retrieve Lucas from the police, and having done so, seem focused like a laser on getting back to 2077. One of them, Kellogg, realizes he can leverage his knowledge of the future to take advantage of current markets, and somehow, in literally the blink of an eye, he's a billionaire. But just like all these prisoners were, well, prisoners in 2077, they all somehow thought the time travel contraption they had was going to take them to 2071. None of them brought cybersuits or specialized knowledge of the past. Hell, it took Kira a moment to figure out automatic transmission as she committed Grand Theft Auto, aided by that suit of hers. The other executionee, Edward, fell from the sky a week or so later relative to the crew's initial arrival time. He came to in a hospital and retook control. He got after the team's new leader, Travis, for targeting Kellogg. Kellogg was enjoying 2012 and was ready to build a life there. The rest of them were trying to leverage futuristic atom smashers to power their return gadget, arguing they needed a transmission line and were stuck with a 12-volt battery. Kira at first tried to return with them, then, with the return pod gadget broke, recovered the broken piece of future tech from the evidence locker. Right around this time, a Brainiac terrorist group starts targeting everyone named Lily. Lils, Lily, Lillian, they're going after all the Lilies, every one of them about the same age, because they figure if they killed everyone named Lily, one of them will be Kira's grandmother and she'll disappear. In which case she'll cease ever to have existed, in which case you'll never have heard of her, in which case this whole scenario will have never happened. So in an alternative timeline, you'll have never done this, so no one will target her, and she will exist, and it's one of those delightful time paradoxes.
Isn't it delightful?
The terrorists are blocked from killing Kira's grandmother, who at the moment is a strung-out, scared teen convinced she needs to end the pregnancy, but they do kidnap Kellogg's grandmother. They end up exchanging her for, surprise, Edward's mother, actually several months pregnant with him. What a twist! Then, after the exchange is made, Kellogg's grandmother is killed anyway, and everyone's wondering if he will vanish. The speculations begin. Maybe that wasn't his biological grandmother. Maybe their very presence sparked an alternate timeline into existence. But one thing's for sure, Kellogg is alive, and the young woman he'd reached out to is dead. It's amazing how they went from, oh my god, let's power up the Returnalator and get right back to where they want us all dead, to, let's see what happens if we create deliberate time paradoxes. I feel like the writers had this idea that terrorists from 2017 are bad guys, so once freed from prison, they'll all run around doing bad things, stealing human growth hormone, kidnapping physicists, murdering teens, and I don't know, and hear me out, they're terrorists because in 2077 they needed to resort to extreme measures to address injustice they experienced. Here in 2012, the corporations aren't technically in charge. They do still have freedom of conscience and assembly. They've got 6 decades to live their lives or making the changes they want to see in the world. Yeah, it's not blow everything up exciting, and it's entirely possible it wouldn't get 4 seasons, but for a group of people sufficiently determined to commit massive atrocities to change the world, from their perspective, from the perspective of now, they've got the opportunity to do so without killing anyone. I guess it's a flaw in the writing. It demands good people are good and bad people are bad. Kira commits all kinds of crimes trying to pursue her objective, to target the fugitives and return home with them, and she wants to get back to her husband and child. Kellogg is determined to stay and reap the rewards of secret future knowledge, and the other fugitives are committing crimes against law enforcement. But so is Kira. I mean, before she steals Carlos's badge to sneak into a crime scene, she tases him and cuffs him to an elevator. In no timeline is that not assault. In what boring way would I reimagine Continuum's first season? Well, I'd keep Rachel Nichols as Kira. She rocks. I totally bought her as a young future career woman mom in 2077. I'd allow the time jump because how else would the storyline work? But I'd craft some backstory discussing how it was that 8 death row prisoners had access to time travel tech in the first place, and who thought it was a great idea for them to be the ones using it. I mean, I'm getting some Suicide Squad vibes off of this, or Australia as a prison camp. Whatever it is that happens to you, at least you're no longer our problem. Bon voyage! Then, once they're here, they all have way more in common with each other than they do with everyone else here in 2012. They do not know if whatever they do impacts the future they're from because they were grown up in the wake of whatever changes they're responsible for. 8 prisoners and 1 cop with an enforcer suit coordinating with the tech team who developed it and working together, determining the best course of, oh my god, I'm that group of philosophers turning the good place into a weekly seminar. No, bad, stop, gross, nerd, shush. It feels like they let the main characters from The Big Bang Theory write a sci-fi police procedural, and this is what they came up with. What happens if she meets her grandmother and she's a hot, out-of-control goth chick? What happens if people from the future come back and commit crimes? What happens if you kill your own parents? Oh, and what happens if a trolley rolling down a track will kill 5 people, but if you throw a lever, it'll only kill 1 person, but that person is a dude who came up with the trolley problem? Oh, the lever station is always manned by billionaires anyway. They're responsible for the track and the trolley and the people being tied to the tracks in the first place, not to mention global warming, concentration camps, tariffs, and political chaos, and all of the winning. As it happens, future terrorists use their influence to turn peaceful protests violent. The leader guy, Edward Kagami, Tony Amidala as Edward Kagami, noted their manifesto was circulating online and gaining traction. The only thing more powerful than money is knowledge, he says. Through this spectacle, the riot, the public execution they're planning, will wake the public from its complacency and teach them to think for themselves. One of his devoted following, Julian, the Richard Harmon I referenced last time from the White Tulip episode of Fringe, sets up fertilizer bombs at his family farm, and when he is targeted by the police, coordinates with Liberate to fabricate a detonate. It's total fake. His plan to fake, immolate, exterminate, and generate a public hate. It fell apart, would not conflate. The plaza burst when all pear-shaped for Liberate's conglomerate. They lied to him, prevaricate. Julian got incarcerate while Kagami's fate played out outright to instigate and detonate. Saw Tower 2 obliterate. Annihilate. Sax solo. Meanwhile, Kira's investigated union politics, neurochemistry, video game mind control, a stark recreation of the destruction of 9/11, and Alec poses the bootstrap paradox from Doctor Who. Number 12, Peter Capaldi's Doctor, posed a thought experiment. Suppose you grew up loving the music of Beethoven, collected it, studied it, learned it, played it perfectly. Then, one day, time travel is invented. You buy your ticket and pack up all your Beethoven sheet music for him to sign and travel to 18th century Germany to express your awe and utter reverence as Beethoven's biggest fan. You look everywhere, and no one knows what you're talking about, even his family. There is no Beethoven. You've got all his sheet music, though, so you painstakingly copy it out by hand, every piece of music ever attributed to him. And it's a huge worldwide hit, and you ascribe it all to this lost master, Beethoven, in essence becoming him. You return to your time, and the music is as well known and as much beloved as ever it has been. But who is responsible for this music? Who put those notes and phrases together? So, when Alec is playing around with 2077 tech, his company is ultimately responsible for creating, and he leaves himself hidden notes from the future to aid in the development of Kira's cybersuit. Who is truly responsible for the creation of this tech? First season ended with a bang, Kagami blowing up an office complex in Vancouver with himself inside, and Sonia taking over the leadership to liberate from Travis by killing him. We also learned about freelancers like Mr. Escher and this Jason guy who got flung back to 1992. Jason built a time machine that unfortunately was not going to work until the development of time circuitry in about 2035, but what luck! Kira just happened to have part of the Returnalator. Guy got very excited. He built a working time dome, which for sure was going to work. The aluminum foil hat is for extra crispiness. The interesting part was that Alex Sadler, 2077, played by the cigarette-smoking man in the X-Files, messaging Alec in the past with information that Kira's time jump had absolutely been part of the plan all along, as was providing Kagami with the time travel tech in the first place. At any rate, I did enjoy the first season enough to track down the remaining 3, so I'm sure I'll have more to say about that down the road. I talked about the Chris Carter production Millennium up there, and took in the pilot episode of that as well. Lance Henriksen is former FBI agent Frank Black, a man who can see the mind of a serial killer, see what he sees, experience what he experiences in disturbing flashes of insight. He is done. He moved to Seattle to escape this paralyzing fear of his family being the target of a Polaroid killer. The guy would travel to a town and walk up to the front door of the first house he encountered, and if it was unlocked, he took it as his invitation to kill everyone inside, and then send a packet of Polaroid pictures to the cops and move on. Well, now that's just an ICE agent, but in 1996, this was truly unthinkable terrorism, so when Frank started receiving Polaroid pictures of his family, his wife, and his daughter, he couldn't cope, and he moved across the country. Unfortunately, he brought his gift with him, and he's getting flashes on a serial killer called the Frenchman. The dancers at a local peep show call him that because he holds up poetry in French. I won't read it because it's very disturbing. A dance in the blood of man, blood streamed down the walls. I know it's a pilot episode and you gotta set a tone, but this passed for primetime entertainment. Ugh. Frank reads newspapers, reads about these women being targeted, and takes his insights on the case to the local police, who are dismissive about the victims. Peep show dancers, who cares? But the flashes are coming thick and fast. Frank interviews the dancers, finds a recording and a copy of the poetry he's reading, a mix of Dante, Nostradamus, and Revelation. The plague is on the maritime city. Peste is pestilence on Seattle, and carvings he's seen around town. In a wooded park, he gets a vibe off a cab driver who he chases through traffic, through the woods, leaps from a bridge, and escapes. Frank is getting vibes walking in a park near some of these carvings, finds people buried alive with their eyes and mouth stitched shut. The Cops find 2 more coffins, empty. Frank has flashed on Stitch faces walking through the park earlier. He figured the empty graves were for them. There's a blood test the Frenchman is running to test for purity. Frank's called the labs, traces the test his division, goes downstairs, finds Paul Dillon as the Frenchman puttering around in the most 1500s lab space, this dark grotto no city planner would countenance. The killer flips a table over on top of Frank and the 100,000-year rain of blood as Terry O'Quinn, Peter Watts, also of the Millennial Group, takes him out and saves Frank. The vibe is heightened by Frank's adorable family moving to their new house and getting settled into their new life, and the fact that the Polaroid killer has followed Frank to Seattle. As the pilot episode closes, he receives a packet in the mail. I'd forgotten most of what this show was about. I forgot, for instance, that it ran entirely inside the 20th century, 1996-1999. I remember there being nightingales and owls, members of the Millennium Group that were trying to usher in a destructive apocalypse, and those trying to avert whatever hysterical madness was inflamed by the new millennium. It's only 3 seasons, and I can't deny the pilot episode was compelling. I'll definitely be watching more. Oh, and if Continuum had a complicated relationship with Joss Whedon milieu, the 1996 production of Profiler showed up with several intriguing ties to Ryan Murphy Productions, including Julian McMahon and Roma Mafia from Nip Tuck as Detective John Graham and Lab Tech Grace Alvarez, 7 years before that show premiered. Moreover, one investigative theme in Profiler involved a psychological consult on plastic surgery. Bailey, Robert Davies, Agent Bailey Malone, and his Violent Crimes Task Force team are stumped after 5 weekends of Atlanta's Saturday Night Killer Mr. Goodbar having produced no leads. Guy meets women at the bar and takes them home, murders them in ways I do not want to describe. It's a pilot episode and they're going for dark. He very reluctantly reaches out to Allie Walker as Samantha Waters. He introduces her as Samantha Lawson because she's deeply and quite identifiably involved with jack-of-all-trades serial killer. Bailey suspects that he's involved in this case somehow as well, but doesn't tell her because if he told her, she would freak out. Jack-of-all-trades murdered her husband while she was investigating him, made it just about as personal as he could, and Sam went off the grid for 3 years. That's the thing, though. Jack was obsessed with Samantha because she posed a challenge, so it was like he was developing our interloping on the Mr. Goodbar case, or whatever it was, specifically to get her involved. The problem with Jack is that his modus operandi did not fit any recognizable pattern, which why Sam's crazy situational awareness was just barely able to hone in on him. In the case of the Mr. Goodbar killings, Sam's visual puzzle solving noticed a vanishing point to the crime scenes, which led to a camera hidden in the closet. The recordings implicated a member of the task force, but while his crimes had remained hidden among the Mr. Goodbar pattern, Sam was able to uncover deeper connections among the victims. They'd all been patients of a local plastic surgeon, and all of them had gone in for psychiatric consults. When the team inquired at the psych offices, an associate, Lee Garlington as Dr. Francis Berry, informed them that one of their associates hadn't been to the office in 3 months, which immediately put him in the crosshairs of suspicion. But if he hadn't been there, he couldn't have consulted with them. Aha! What was going on was the mannish Dr. Berry was breaking into these women's homes while they were alone, dressed in masculine garb, and recreating their surgeries. She'd grown up with a domineering mother who tormented her about not being pretty enough. Her first plastic surgery was when she was 11 years old. Based on the clues she'd uncovered, Sam was able to confront her at her latest crime scene and arrest her. But while they were pursuing these cases, other bodies had turned up, one as presentationally as possible, a street corner at night with a message in her mouth, fit together with similar messages under black light. It read, "I miss you, Sam. Jack of all trades." Sam was furious that Bailey put her back on his radar, but after having some time to think about it, explained it to her daughter like this. If your classmate needed help and you were the only one who could help her, wouldn't you? Oh, this was after a similar conversation with her friend Angel, who said she could protect her daughter all she wanted, but at some point she'd enter that world she's hiding her from, and wouldn't she want to do what she could to improve it? Hard to know, since as the closing credits rolled, Jack had pulled up the stories about the Goodbar killer's apprehension, and he was writing the message, "Sam, you've come back to me." Cold and creepy. See, this was the 1990s Silence of the Lambs style profiler I was really drawn to at one point in my life, a carefully written puzzler pitting an obsessed criminal against a truly insightful investigator. I loved the Hannibal Lecter series, Silence of the Lambs, Red Dragon, and Hannibal. I loved Profiler, at least the first 3 seasons of it, and as I've noted several times before, I watched Criminal Minds for far too many seasons. I'll admit that with the double fake and the sneaky subplot establishing Jack's reemergence, there was far too much going on in this pilot episode, but damn, it's interesting that for a show that featured 2 principal players in Ryan Murphy's Nip Tuck, they opened with a plastic surgery storyline, and they didn't jump up and down on the serial killer's a cross-dresser. Isn't that weird? And just noted that she was acting out some unresolved childhood trauma. Scene. Turning to much later Ryan Murphy production, Murph joined with the creators of Will and Grace to explore another facet of gay culture, aging gayfully. Ralph and I called up the pilot episode of Mid-Century Modern, absolutely a reimagination of the Golden Girls, with Nathan Lane as Dorothy, Bunny, Linda Lavin as his mother Sophia, or rather Sybil, Matt Bomer as Jerry Frank, who's very much a Rose character, and Nathan Lee Graham as Arthur, the fabulous Blanche Dubois. Bunny, Arthur, and Jerry reconnect at the funeral of their friend George. They spend a night reminiscing about their friend and how they never see each other anymore. Jerry says, "We FaceTime every night," to which Bunny says, "Oh, I use a filter, that's not even me anymore." Bunny invites them all to come live with him at his fabulous Palm Springs home. There's a delightful bit of verbal sparring between Arthur and Sybil, and almost immediately Bunny shoos them all out again because he's found a magical new love named Antonio Sandoval. Annoyed, Arthur and Jerry take a room near the airport at a fancy French motel called Le Chauvet Inn. It's the Shove It Inn, where they happen to notice the love of Bunny's life, Antonio Sandoval, checking in the slightly more attractive man, and naturally cannot wait to rub this in Bunny's face. When they meet up the next day, Bunny sounds like he's enwrapped with the duplicitous Antonio, and Arthur is just bursting at the chance to wreck him with this news. Bunny ultimately says he is indeed in love with the 2 of them. Duh. The pilot episode features some gay culture commentary about non-monogamous couples, sexual positions, and of course fashion fussiness. I do not know if network television in 2025 would be cool with a clothed Nathan Lane in bed with a nude Renan Pacheco, so it was fun to encounter this on Hulu. The implication, of course, is that all 3 of these roommates have been intimate, and there aren't going to be a lot of boundaries in storytelling. But if you were going to illustrate gay culture in the current climate, discussion of prep, drag, sugar daddies, and otherwise finding roommates to help with costs is definitely going to be part of it, especially in Palm Springs, where property values are estimated about 20% higher than the national average. Bunny might well be a high-end underwear mogul, but Arthur, the struggling fashionista, and Jerry, the flight attendant, may very well need some help. We're a few episodes into it, and I just gotta reiterate, the world has lost a light with the passing of Linda Lavin. I am so glad she got to be part of this. The writing for her was wonderful. She was sharp and sweet, and I'm so sorry, but wearing a Robin's Egg Blue Kaylee Shindig Ruffle Inception dress opposite Jesse Tyler Ferguson telling you look fabulous is the stuff of highlight reels from a life well lived. Beyond that, it is once again well past time to get this one into the feed. Thank you all for checking in on my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at VideoFuzzy.blogspot.com, and for past episodes, add, follow, and subscribe to VideoFuzzy every podcasts. If you get a chance, please check out my VideoFuzzy the soundtrack entries as well. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites via email tjaman1970@yahoo.com or through my VideoFuzzy pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing.
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.